Good morning. It is a joy. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice in it. It is the day of graduation, commencement beginning, and I am deeply honored and delighted to be part of this ceremony. When I was here last year, someone asked if I would come back and speak at commencement. I said yes. Now I wish I had flown in from the White House, but I'm just as happy to be here anyway. I want to thank President Crew. Rudy Crew and I have been comrades in arms on behalf of education and equity and justice for many years, and I am grateful for his leadership and his mentorship. To the Chancellor, the trustees, professors, faculty, staff, alumni, but most particularly proud family members, thank you for all that you have done to make this moment possible. And I am grateful most of all, as I had the privilege of sitting here and looking out at this class, to be able to join in congratulating you and sending you off from an institution that has been critical in your lives, as we've heard from the speakers, particularly the excellent student speakers, the valedictorian and the two student council leaders who did themselves and did this college so proud. This college has been a shining light in central Brooklyn now for nearly 5 decades, part of the CUNY system, which is the most remarkable, diverse education system, I think, in the world. 275,000 students, built on the idea that the doors of education should be open to everyone. So when this college admitted its first students back in 1970, that was its mission. And guess what? It opened during a period of tumultuous change in America. The Selma to Montgomery marches had just taken place 5 years earlier. We were facing assassinations, political turmoil, investigations. So what a powerful message indeed it was to name this college after Medgar Evers. Remember, as you heard from Rena and Daniel, as you saw Merle on the screen, Medgar Evers was murdered in 1963 by a white supremacist and a Klansman because of his activism on behalf of civil rights. He worked to end segregation at the University of Mississippi, to advance social justice, to guarantee voting rights. His legacy lives on in every one of you, today's graduates. The motto of this institution, courage, strength, and fortitude, represents Medgar and Merle Evers, and I hope it is in your hearts, because you are an inspiring group. You come from 94 countries, speak 44 languages. You embody what makes New York and America great already. Your ambition, your innovation, your diversity is who we are and who we should want to be. In this graduating class of more than 1,000 students, there are more than 1,000 stories. The oldest graduate is 75 years old. It's never too late, my friends. The youngest is 17. And I want to give a special shout out to the high school students from the Smart Scholar Program. Now, many of you worked, and you worked hard all the way through school. I have just a few stories that the college gave me, but they represent every one of you. Yahya Musad immigrated from Yemen. When he first came to this country, he worked in the deli across the street from Medgar Evers. He made sandwiches for students and professors. And today he's graduating with honors. I'm certainly glad he wasn't banned from America. And I know lots of you worked. Some of you worked multiple jobs, like Eunice Williams, who drove for Uber, worked as a certified nursing assistant, and still managed to finish her degree in 4 years, exemplifying the determination of this class. A lot of you balanced studying with raising children, like Fedora Cox, an associate degree scholar who received the highest GPA in her class, and whose 12-year-old son, Emran, will watch his mother cross this stage for her degree. And a significant number of you are the first in your family to go to college. You dreamed big, you worked hard, you refused to give up on your education, no matter what other challenges you faced. Now, I know that it may not have seemed glamorous when you were struggling and striving to get through each day, but boy, am I proud of you. Your grit, your perseverance, your unstoppable drive to succeed is what got you here. And what's so important is that you never lose that. I had the chance to talk to my friend Merle on the phone yesterday, and it brought back a lot of memories. It's been such a privilege for me and my husband and daughter to know her and her family over the years, to have her daughter and grandson here. And there is an indelible memory picture in my head. Some of you might remember it. The photos from Medgar Evers' funeral, with Merle comforting her crying son and children. She's been dealt more than her share of heartache over the years. But as you just heard, through it all, she kept the faith. She says in that wonderful voice of hers, "You can't keep a good woman down." Today, she and her family have joined together to help train the next generation of leaders at the Medgar and Merle Evers Institute. And that inspires me, and I hope it inspires you to keep fighting, keep going. Carry on what you have learned here, the lessons from this college as you leave Medgar. Evers, but also the lessons of Medgar's and Myrle's lives. Remember, the work of justice is never finished. We have seen that and been reminded of it recently. The first months of this year saw a surge in hate crimes across our country. White supremacists are emboldened and their numbers are on the rise. Most of you probably heard what recently happened in Portland, Oregon. A white supremacist boarded a train and unleashed a racist, xenophobic tirade against two teenage girls. Their fellow passengers didn't hesitate. They stepped in front of those girls to block the abuse. And then that hate-filled man stabbed two of the rescuers and protectors to death, and another who narrowly escaped with his life. Other passengers rushed forward to comfort and pray with the victims. And one victim's last words as he was carried away by paramedics echoes what President Cruz said at the very beginning of this ceremony. Tell everyone on this train I love them. At the last minute of his life, he was thinking of love. Love for those he knew and love for total strangers. This showed us the best and the worst of humanity among us. We all, not just our nation's leaders, but all of us must recommit ourselves to the urgent work of protecting the safety and civil rights of all of our people, not moving in the opposite direction, undoing the progress that we have made thanks to the sacrifice and work of people like Medgar and Myrle Evers over the decades. But instead, we see official actions that turn us against one another and turn us back. The Muslim ban is a particularly egregious example. And yes, it is a ban, as the president himself made very clear this week. But you know, attacks on civil rights don't have to be dramatic to be dangerous. President Cruz and I were talking about some of the actions being taken at the Department of Education in Washington to undermine the progress that public schools and public colleges and universities have made and the benefits that they have provided to our country. Or look at the efforts to suppress the vote, the principal right that Medgar Evers fought and died for. States and the federal government are introducing bills to try to make it harder to vote. We cannot let that happen. And now, the Department of Justice itself is actively taking steps to support those state efforts to make it more difficult for law-abiding citizens, especially Black and poor and elderly or young, to cast their ballots. Remember what Professor Una Clark said. This is the fundamental right that determines what kind of society we live in. There's another lesson that Medgar and Myrle, I think, have taught us. Each of us has the power and the responsibility to right wrongs and correct injustices. You don't have to give your life as Medgar Evers did, or Myrle, who dedicated hers to the pursuit of justice, to do your part. There are so many examples even in this class. And as I listened to the students thank those who made it possible for them to be here, I thought about a little 11-year-old girl named Marley Diaz who noticed that there were no characters in her books who looked like her. So she started a campaign called 1,000 Black Girl Books. She launched a hashtag. Anybody can launch a hashtag these days. And she began a national conversation. Just recently, the mayor of New Orleans, Mitch Landrieu, understood he couldn't erase and change history, but he could help see to it that Confederate monuments across New Orleans were taken down. And if you haven't read his very brave speech, I hope you will. Here's what he said: because we are one nation, not two, indivisible with liberty and justice for all, not some. Anyone can take a stand, anyone can speak out. New Yorkers flooded to the airports to fight against that ban. Cab drivers went on strike. People have raised their voices. Millions of people turned out to march after the day of the inauguration. And for any who wondered whether it would make a difference, guess what? It did. It galvanized people. It helped change public opinion. So for those of you thinking about your future careers, just imagine how important it will be to stand up and speak out. For any of you thinking about law school or paralegal work or law enforcement, like the extraordinary borough president, you will be on the front line, sometimes the last line, in protecting civil rights. So think about what you can do and the important work that organizations you can support, like the ACLU and the National Immigration Law Center and the NAACP. They are on those front lines every day fighting for equal justice under our laws. And please, no matter where your future takes you, wherever you end up, vote. Register immediately. Vote in all elections. You saw what City Council member Cumbo did because she's devoted to this college, and she came up here with that check to help make sure that Medgar Evers College has all of the resources you deserve to provide the best quality education for the students who come here. So yes, previous generations may have begun the struggle for voting rights, but I'll tell you, none of our struggles are over. And all of the speaking out and protesting doesn't mean much if you don't help choose the elected officials who have the ability to shape your world. And that's the third lesson that I take from Medgar and Merle Evers. Never let anyone silence your voice. Medgar Evers faced constant threats because of his work. His house was firebombed by white supremacists, but he refused to back down. And even after he was killed, despite her pain and sadness, despite the danger and the warnings from friends that her children could also lose their mother, Merle kept going. So when you go out into this world awaiting you, you know there will be some people who try to undermine you because of who you are, what you believe. They'll say that you're just less valuable. Maybe it's the color of your skin or your background, your gender, your religion, who you love, how you worship. Don't you believe them for a second. Speak out on social media. Make your voices heard every single day. And when they even try to dismiss your lived experiences, maybe they'll call it identity politics, stand up and say your identity is as important and valuable as the identity of anybody else who lives in the United States of America. And finally, we started off with President Crew talking about love, and let me end my remarks by saying that the people you love and who love you can see you through tough times. Merle has said that she and Medgar never parted ways angry with one another. More often than not, they said, "I love you," instead of goodbye. Because each time he walked out the door, they knew it could be the last time they saw each other. They lifted each other up. They made each other braver and stronger. The friends, the families and relatives and classmates you're sharing this day with can be your most valuable support system. The people you lean on in ways large and small every single day to deal with disappointments and tragedy, even tough times that we're living through now. Oh, I've had a few setbacks in my own life. And losing an election is pretty devastating, especially considering who I lost to. But even that pales in comparison to what Merle went through, and frankly, what a lot of people go through every day. 20 years ago, I wrote a book called It Takes a Village, and a lot of people ask me, well, what do you mean by that? It's a great African proverb. I meant that none of us can raise a family, build a business, heal a community, or lift a country by ourselves. Anything worth doing takes a village, and you build that village by investing love and time into your relationships. That's how you build resilience and strength to overcome whatever life throws at you. Scripture tells us, let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. So finally, class of 2017, do not grow weary. Do not lose heart. Make your mark in the world and make your voices heard. Help us build that brighter future that every single one of us believes in and deserves. So now, as you graduate, let me wish you not only congratulations, but Godspeed wherever your journeys take you. Thank you, class of 2017.